Bad people don't wake up thinking, "I'm the villain." That idea belongs to movies, not psychology. From the inside, evil feels clean. It feels logical. It feels justified. When someone harms others, manipulates, exploits, or lies, they rarely experience it as cruelty. They experience it as necessity. I had no choice. They deserved it. That's just how the world works. This is the first and most important thing to understand. No one wants to see themselves as the bad guy, so the mind adapts. It reframes. It edits reality until their actions look reasonable, even moral. A bad person doesn't ask, "Is this wrong?" They ask, "Is this fair to me?" If they feel wronged, ignored, threatened, or insecure, harm becomes justified in their mind. Revenge becomes balance. Manipulation becomes intelligence. Cruelty becomes strength. And once an action feels justified, guilt disappears. Not because they lack intelligence, but because the mind is incredibly skilled at protecting its self-image. This is why bad people can look calm, confident, even righteous while doing damage. They are not fighting their conscience. They've already convinced it. Understanding this changes how you see them. You stop waiting for regret that will never come. You stop expecting empathy that was never part of the equation. And most importantly, you stop assuming that shared humanity guarantees shared morality. It doesn't. Evil doesn't feel evil from the inside. It feels like being right. 1. Bad people don't see themselves as bad. They see themselves as justified. Evil doesn't feel evil from the inside. It feels reasonable, necessary, even moral. Most people imagine bad people as individuals who are fully aware of their cruelty, as if harm requires a conscious decision to be evil. But psychology shows us something far more unsettling. Almost no one experiences themselves as the villain of their own story. From the inside, wrongdoing rarely feels wrong. It feels logical. It feels like a response. It feels earned. When someone manipulates, exploits, betrays, or hurts others, their mind immediately goes to work, not to question the act, but to justify it. Because the human psyche has one central rule: protect the self-image at all costs. And the easiest way to do that is to rewrite the meaning of your actions. A bad person doesn't say, "I'm cruel." They say, "I'm realistic." They don't say, "I'm selfish." They say, "I'm finally putting myself first." They don't say, "I'm manipulative." They say, "I'm smarter than everyone else." This is how evil becomes invisible to the person committing it. Instead of asking, "Is this wrong?" they ask, "Is this justified?" And justification doesn't require morality. It only requires a reason that feels good enough. If they feel disrespected, revenge becomes fairness. If they feel threatened, aggression becomes self-defense. If they feel inferior, domination becomes restoration of balance. In their mind, harm is not cruelty, it is correction. This is why bad people often speak with certainty and confidence. They are not conflicted. They are not torn apart by guilt. Their internal narrative has already absolved them. And once the mind reaches that point, conscience becomes optional. Psychologists call this moral disengagement, the process by which people disconnect their actions from ethical standards. They shift blame, they minimize harm, they dehumanize others. They compare themselves to worse people to feel superior. All of it serves one purpose: to remain the hero of their own story. This is also why arguing with a bad person rarely leads to accountability. You're not debating facts, you're challenging an identity. And the mind will defend its identity more fiercely than it defends the truth. When confronted, bad people don't reflect, they rationalize. They don't listen, they justify. They don't feel shame, they feel attacked. And once someone believes their actions are necessary or deserved, no amount of moral language will reach them. Because in their mind, they're not breaking the rules, they're operating above them. This mindset often begins with small justifications. A lie here, a betrayal there, a moment of selfishness explained away. But each time the mind escapes guilt, the next step becomes easier. What once felt questionable becomes normal. What once felt wrong becomes strategy. Over time, morality isn't abandoned, it's redesigned. Good becomes whatever benefits them. Bad becomes whatever threatens them. And here's the part that good people struggle to accept. Bad people often believe they are more honest than you, more realistic, more aware of how the world really works. They see your empathy as weakness, your conscience as naivety, your hesitation as foolishness. In their mind, they're not cruel, you're just behind. This is why waiting for remorse is dangerous. This is why expecting self-awareness is naive. This is why good people get trapped trying to explain pain to someone who has already justified causing it. Understanding this isn't about becoming cynical. It's about becoming clear. When you realize that evil doesn't feel evil to the person committing it, you stop trying to appeal to their conscience. You stop expecting regret. You stop mistaking confidence for integrity. You recognize that some people are not immoral because they are confused. They are immoral because they are convinced. And once someone is convinced they're justified, they don't need permission. They don't need empathy. They don't need remorse. They only need opportunity. That is the true psychology of bad people, not monsters driven by darkness, but ordinary minds protected by powerful justifications. And that understanding is the first step to no longer being vulnerable to them. 2. They prioritize advantage over morality. Right and wrong are tools. Ethics aren't principles to them. They're strategies used only when convenient. For most people, morality acts like an internal compass. It guides decisions even when no one is watching. It creates limits, lines you don't cross, even when doing so would benefit you. But for bad people, morality doesn't function this way at all. To them, right and wrong are not boundaries. They are instruments. They don't ask, is this ethical? They ask, does this work? If honesty brings advantage, they'll be honest. If lying brings advantage, they'll lie without conflict. If kindness builds trust, they'll be kind. If cruelty creates fear, they'll be cruel. There is no contradiction in this for them, because morality is not tied to identity. It's tied to outcome. This is what separates principled people from opportunistic ones. Principled people suffer for their values. Opportunistic people abandon values the moment they become inconvenient. And here's the unsettling part. Bad people are often extremely good at pretending to be moral. Because when ethics are tools, you learn exactly when and how to deploy them. They know when to quote values, when to invoke fairness, when to appeal to empathy, when to stand on principle. But notice something important. Those values always appear when they serve their interests. They demand honesty when it benefits them. They demand loyalty when they need support. They demand fairness when they're losing. And they abandon all of it the moment power shifts. This is why bad people can feel so confusing. One moment they sound reasonable, ethical, even noble. The next moment they do something that completely violates what they just said they believed in. To a moral person, this looks like hypocrisy. To them, it's simply strategy. They don't experience moral tension because they don't bind themselves to moral consistency. They bind themselves to advantage. Psychologically, this mindset comes from a belief, often learned early, that the world is a zero-sum game, that someone must lose for someone else to win. And in that worldview, ethics become luxuries for the naive. In their mind, good people don't win, they get exploited. So they learn to switch masks. Ethical when watched, ruthless when hidden, principled when praised, cold when challenged. This doesn't mean they have no moral language. It means they have too much of it used tactically. They understand exactly how morality sounds. They just don't let it restrain them. This is also why arguing ethics with bad people rarely works. You think you're discussing principles. They think you're negotiating leverage. When you say, "That's wrong," they hear, "You shouldn't do that to me." When you appeal to fairness, they hear, "Give me something." When you express hurt, they hear, "I'm vulnerable," and they adjust accordingly. This doesn't make them smarter. It makes them more dangerous, because while you're trying to be good, they're trying to win. And winning to them doesn't require honor, only results. Over time, this way of thinking erodes something fundamental: trust. Not just others' trust in them, but their own trust in the idea of goodness itself. They come to believe that morality is a performance, not a standard. That everyone is pretending. That anyone who claims otherwise is lying or foolish. And once you believe that, exploiting others doesn't feel evil. It feels like realism. The tragedy is that this mindset often appears successful in the short term. Bad people get ahead. They rise. They dominate. They extract value while others hesitate. But the cost is always hidden. Relationships become transactions. Loyalty becomes fragile. Paranoia replaces peace. When you treat morality as a tool, you eventually realize others are doing the same to you. And now the world feels hostile, untrustworthy, and cold, a world of your own making. Understanding this psychology is not about becoming immoral yourself. It's about recognizing the game you may be unwillingly playing. Because if you assume everyone shares your moral limits, you will keep being shocked when they don't. If you expect consistency from someone who values advantage above all else, you will keep being disappointed. Bad people don't break rules because they're impulsive. They break them because rules were never sacred to begin with. To them, morality is not a guide. It's a weapon. And once you see that clearly, you stop trying to appeal to ethics and start protecting your boundaries. That's how you stay intact in a world where not everyone plays by the same code. 3. Empathy is selective. They feel it only when it serves them. They understand emotions well, but only to exploit or manipulate outcomes. One of the most misleading beliefs about bad people is that they lack empathy. The truth is more precise and more dangerous. They often understand emotions extremely well. They just don't let empathy restrain their behavior. Empathy, for most people, is a brake. When you sense someone's pain, it slows you down. It makes you hesitate. It creates discomfort at the idea of causing harm. For bad people, empathy doesn't function as a brake. It functions as data. They can read faces, tones, moods, insecurities. They know when someone is afraid, lonely, eager, ashamed, or hopeful. But instead of responding with care, they respond with calculation. This is what selective empathy looks like. They will show compassion when it earns trust. They will show concern when it builds dependence. They will show warmth when it lowers your defenses. And the moment empathy stops being useful, it disappears. This is why interactions with bad people can feel deeply confusing. One moment they seem understanding, attentive, even emotionally intelligent. The next moment they are cold, dismissive, or cruel, without explanation. To a moral person, empathy is stable. To a manipulative person, empathy is conditional. They don't ask, "How do you feel?" because they care. They ask because the answer gives them leverage. If you're hurting, they learn where you're weak. If you're happy, they learn what motivates you. If you're insecure, they learn how to control you. This is also why bad people are often mistaken for deep or emotionally mature. They speak the language of feelings fluently. They can mirror emotions convincingly. They know the right words to say at the right time. But notice what's missing: consistency. Their empathy appears when it benefits them and vanishes when it costs them. When you need support but offer no reward, they're unavailable. When your pain demands sacrifice, they disengage. When your boundaries interfere with their advantage, your feelings suddenly don't matter. And when confronted with this inconsistency, they rarely feel guilt. They feel inconvenience. Psychologically, this happens because their emotional system is wired around outcome, not connection. They don't feel bonded by shared humanity. They feel bonded by usefulness. This doesn't mean they feel nothing. It means they feel selectively. They may feel empathy for people they admire. They may feel empathy for people who benefit them. They may even feel empathy for victims when it enhances their self-image. But they don't feel empathy when it threatens their goals. This is why appeals like, "How could you do this to me?" fall flat. They already know how you feel. They just don't see it as relevant. Understanding this is crucial because many good people keep trying to reach the empathy in bad people, believing that if they explain their pain clearly enough, it will finally register. It won't. Bad people don't lack emotional awareness. They lack emotional restraint. They know the impact of their actions. They just don't allow that knowledge to stop them. In fact, the more emotionally expressive you are, the more information you give them. Your vulnerability becomes a map. Your honesty becomes a guidebook. This is why bad people often target empathetic individuals, not because empathy is weakness, but because it is readable, predictable, exploitable. And once you understand this, something important shifts. You stop over-explaining. You stop pleading for understanding. You stop trying to awaken a conscience that isn't asleep. It's simply uninterested. Instead, you protect your emotional boundaries. You limit what you reveal. You stop rewarding selective empathy with access to your inner world. Bad people don't need to be taught how you feel. They already know. What they need to lose is the ability to use that knowledge against you. And that happens the moment you stop assuming empathy equals care. Because in some minds, empathy isn't compassion. It's intelligence without conscience. And once you see that clearly, you stop mistaking emotional fluency for moral depth, and you stop handing power to people who were never planning to use it responsibly. 4. Guilt is replaced by rationalization. Excuses become armor. Instead of remorse, they build stories that protect their self-image. For most people, guilt is painful, but useful. It's the emotion that signals you've crossed a line. It forces reflection. It slows behavior. It pushes you to repair damage. Guilt is uncomfortable, but it keeps your moral compass alive. Bad people don't experience guilt this way, not because they're incapable of feeling it, but because they've learned how to replace it with rationalization. The moment guilt appears, their mind goes to work, not to correct the behavior, but to explain it away. And the explanation doesn't need to be true. It just needs to protect the self-image. I had no choice. They pushed me. That's just how things are. Anyone in my position would have done the same. These aren't thoughts. They're armor. Rationalization is the psychological process of creating reasons that make harmful behavior feel acceptable. It allows someone to act against their values without experiencing themselves as immoral. Instead of asking, "What did I do wrong?" they ask, "How do I justify what I did?" And once the story is in place, guilt disappears. This is why bad people can do the same harmful thing repeatedly without emotional consequence. Each time a new justification is built, a new excuse, a new narrative that casts them as the victim, the realist, or the hero forced into a difficult choice. Over time, these stories become automatic. They don't reflect, they react. They don't regret, they revise the story. And the more often they rationalize, the less accessible guilt becomes. Eventually, remorse feels unnecessary, even irrational. Why feel bad when you've already decided you were right? This is also why accountability feels threatening to bad people. Accountability attacks the narrative. It forces them to confront the gap between who they believe they are and what they've done. And rather than bridge that gap with humility, they close it with excuses. If confronted, they may minimize the harm. "It wasn't that bad." Shift blame. "You're overreacting." Redefine intent. "That's not what I meant." Attack the accuser. "You're just sensitive." None of this is random. It's psychological self-defense. Because guilt would require change. Rationalization requires only words. This process also explains why bad people often seem emotionally untouched by the damage they cause. It's not that they don't see it. It's that their internal story has already neutralized it. In their mind, the harm was necessary. The victim was complicit. The outcome was unavoidable. And once harm is framed as inevitable, remorse feels pointless. Over time, this habit reshapes identity. They begin to see themselves as someone who is constantly misunderstood, unfairly criticized, or forced into hard choices by a hostile world. This identity is powerful and dangerous, because once you believe you are always justified, you never have to stop. The tragedy is that rationalization doesn't just protect them from guilt, it isolates them from growth. Without guilt, there is no reflection. Without reflection, there is no evolution, only repetition. They keep doing the same things, telling the same stories, burning the same bridges, and wondering why nothing ever truly improves. Understanding this is crucial for your own protection. If you expect remorse from someone who survives on rationalization, you will keep waiting for something that never arrives. If you expect accountability from someone whose identity depends on justification, you will keep being disappointed. Bad people don't heal through insight. They stabilize through excuses. And once you recognize the armor for what it is, you stop trying to pierce it with reason or empathy. You stop debating their stories. You stop hoping for apologies that would require self-exposure. Instead, you see clearly, as long as excuses protect their identity, guilt has no place to land. And without guilt, nothing changes. That's the psychology of rationalization, not a lack of intelligence, but a refusal to look inward. And once someone masters that refusal, they can live with almost anything they've done without losing sleep. Understanding this doesn't make you cold. It makes you realistic, because the most dangerous lies are not the ones told to others. They're the ones people tell themselves. 5. Power calms them. Control is their emotional safety. Dominance isn't about cruelty. It's how they regulate insecurity and fear. When we think of bad people, we often imagine someone who enjoys hurting others for the thrill of it. We picture chaos, malice, or senseless aggression. But in reality, for many manipulative and morally disengaged individuals, cruelty is rarely the goal. The goal is control. Power is their anchor. It is the tool that steadies their emotions, the mechanism that shields them from the insecurities they cannot face. To understand this, we need to separate intent from effect. Yes, bad people hurt others. Yes, they manipulate, intimidate, and dominate. But the reason they do it isn't always because they want to inflict pain. They do it because dominance creates a sense of security, a buffer against their own vulnerabilities. When someone feels in control, their fear diminishes. When someone controls outcomes, their anxiety fades. When someone dictates the environment, they feel safe from unpredictability. This explains why some individuals are calm in situations where most would panic. Their sense of power provides stability. Others' discomfort, obedience, or fear is not just a byproduct. It is proof that their environment aligns with their control. Bad people often study others not to hurt them arbitrarily, but to map out how to maintain dominance. They notice triggers, weaknesses, and desires, not to empathize, but to predict and influence behavior. When people act as expected, the bad person feels secure. When someone resists, tension rises and strategies are adjusted. Dominance, in this sense, functions like a psychological security blanket. It reassures them that their position is unthreatened. Control allows them to regulate their own emotions without confronting the underlying insecurity or fear that motivates their behavior. Think of it this way: the bad person is not fearless. They are often deeply anxious, hyper-aware of social hierarchies, and sensitive to challenges. What makes them appear cold or ruthless is that they've learned to redirect that anxiety outward. By controlling others, they quiet the chaos within themselves. Fear is externalized as strategy. Insecurity is masked as confidence. This is why power is so central to their thinking. They don't seek dominance for its own sake. They seek the emotional relief it provides. And because their emotional safety depends on control, they are often relentless in maintaining it. Losing influence, being challenged, or being exposed threatens not only their social standing, but their internal equilibrium. This mindset also explains why bad people can be so calculating. They are not impulsive in their aggression, they are strategic. Every act of intimidation, every manipulation, every subtle threat is aimed at preserving emotional stability. The chaos they create for others is the control they require for themselves. And notice how this can be confusing for those around them. It appears as if they are fearless, even ruthless, in situations where we feel vulnerable. In truth, their apparent confidence is a protective mechanism, not a natural trait. By observing how others respond, they continually calibrate their environment to reinforce their own emotional equilibrium. Understanding this has profound implications. First, it clarifies that attempts to reason, persuade, or appeal to morality often fail. Power, not ethics, guides their decisions. Second, it highlights why resistance is threatening. Not only does it challenge their authority, it undermines the emotional safety they've constructed. And finally, it explains why giving them uncontrolled influence over your emotions or decisions is dangerous. It reinforces the very control they rely on to feel stable. Recognizing this is the first step toward protection. When you understand that control is their emotional anchor, you stop misinterpreting their actions as purely malicious or personal. You see the pattern, the strategy, and the source of their calm, and you can adjust your response accordingly by refusing to grant control, by setting boundaries, and by maintaining your own emotional independence. Power calms them. Control secures them. Dominance is not an expression of cruelty. It is an armor against vulnerability. Once you understand that, you stop being a pawn in their system. You stop providing the leverage they require to regulate their fear. And you reclaim your position, not by confrontation, but by refusing to feed the mechanism that makes them appear so composed, so untouchable, so in control. Because the true threat is not the bad person themselves. It's the power you give them over your reality. And the moment you stop granting it, their calm begins to fracture. By now, it should be clear. Bad people are not simply evil in the way stories make them out to be. Their behavior is not random. It is calculated, justified, and deeply rooted in how they see the world and themselves. They prioritize advantage over morality, exploit empathy selectively, rationalize their actions to remove guilt, and use control as a shield for their insecurity. The unsettling truth is this: they are not held back by conscience. They are driven by self-preservation, advantage, and emotional security. And once you realize this, you stop expecting the impossible, that they will act fairly, feel true remorse, or operate by your moral standards. This understanding is not meant to make you cynical. It's meant to make you stronger, wiser, and less vulnerable. The moment you see the patterns clearly, you stop giving them power over your emotions, your decisions, and your life. You stop being confused by manipulation. You stop hoping for recognition or morality where there is none. Knowledge is your weapon. Awareness is your shield. Protect your boundaries, choose your battles, and never mistake confidence for integrity. If this video helped you see the hidden mechanics behind toxic behavior, subscribe for more insights into human psychology. And comment below, which pattern surprised you the most, and how will you protect yourself moving forward? Understanding is the first step toward mastery, and now you have the map.